welcome back to Morning Rush. You've probably seen this next story all over social media and dominating internet headlines. An affair between married TV co-host Amy Robach and TJ Holmes. The news broke nearly 2 weeks ago, but people are still talking about it since then. Both Robach and Holmes have been taken off the air, with an ABC News official saying while the relationship did not violate a company policy technically, it did create internal and external disruptions.
All right. Now, this is not the first workplace affair or relationship to grab headlines, to say the least, or even cause disruption at one organization or another. Earlier this year, for example, an affair between Boston Celtics head coach and a coworker became public, and that led to the coach being suspended for the entire NBA season. And he's currently going through a divorce with actress Nia Long. Nia clearly winning that PR battle. Yes. And on top of that, another very high-profile case. The former president of CNN, Jeff Zucker, forced to step down after a consensual relationship with another executive came to light. In other words, we've seen this before, and here we are again. So let's talk about it. Joining Morning Rush to discuss these kind of situations, Angela Hall, an associate professor in the School of Human Resources and Labor Relations at Michigan State University. Angela, good morning. All right.
Good morning.
So everybody has an opinion on TJ and Amy. People are all up in that Kool-Aid, can't get enough because it's juicy and there's a soap opera quality and it's public and and there's drama, right? And they're good-looking people on TV. Okay, the whole thing. We get why. But what do you make of ABC's reaction to the situation so far?
So, am I surprised by the reaction? No. You probably know better than anybody that when you're public facing, that oftentimes you have an image to uphold, and oftentimes there are morals clauses in public figures' employment contracts. ABC is saying that they did not violate any of their policies, so that makes me think that they're saying that they didn't violate their contract. However, I mean, it's within the rights of ABC to do that, but it may be a situation where their views may not be in line with maybe the public's views about workplace romances, because the studies that are coming out, including a recent one by the Society for Human Resource Management, said that since the pandemic started, workplace romances are actually on the rise.
Oh, interesting. And it has been interesting, too, to kind of see the public's reaction to this, saying, you know, these are two consenting adults. What's the big deal? But what people don't understand is with TV contracts, there's a lot of nuance involved, and there's a lot of language in there that the average person may not understand. It's going to be a lot different than your typical contracts, right?
For sure.
But in all of these cases that we talked about, the relationships are between consenting adults. There was still a lot of fallout. Why is consent not enough to make these situations okay for a company? Aside from, you know, what it looks like from the outside in, what are some things that people need to kind of maybe start thinking about before starting a relationship with a coworker?
That's a good question. What happens is that employers are really concerned about sexual harassment complaints. If they're coming from coworkers thinking that, in case things like fall apart, let's say someone is dating and then they break up, what are the fallouts for that? Of course, you wouldn't want to have a romantic relationship between boss and subordinate, especially because if something like that happens, there could be what we call quid pro quo, the argument that the only reason why they are in this relationship is because they're forced to do that in order to keep or maintain their employment or not be punished. And so employers are really afraid of that liability. But the reality is, from the beginning of time, as long as people have worked together, they've engaged in romantic relationships, and it's going to continue. So it's a matter of employers having the right policies in place in order to manage these situations.
I married my workplace relationship. I mean, he's a fellow reporter, you know. So, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's like in the moment you may not think about it, but when you are in that boss subordinate, that is like really the key issue there, I think, with a lot of these situations.
That's what I wanted to ask about, because that's kind of what you always hear in these situations, that if there's a power imbalance, that becomes a problem. That was the Zucker issue, right? I mean, you know, they were both single, consenting adults, hey, you know,
whatever,
have a good time. But he's the president, so obviously everyone, it falls beneath him on the organizational chart.
Right? and when you think about it.
Right, and same with TJ and Amy. They're both co-anchors. They do the same job, but then information came out about other alleged affairs with people lower on the flow chart at work. So what does the power imbalance impact have or not have? Does that make a situation better or worse?
The power imbalance makes the situation a lot worse. Like I mentioned before, people may feel that they have to continue in a relationship, or they may have some adverse employment contract. And also, there's a little known line of legal cases that says that if you see your boss engaging in a romantic relationship with one of your coworkers, even though you're not directly related, it may feel that the only way of getting ahead is to having a romantic relationship with your boss, and that may in itself be a form of hostile work environment. So organizations are very, very sensitive about that as well. They should, because it's just a way for them to engage in some risk management.
Let's say you are in this relationship with somebody in your office, and let's say you guys are on an equal playing field when it comes to employment. Do you have to divulge that information to a boss? Does that matter, or is that something you keep to yourself? Does it really only cause a problem when there is that power imbalance?
So best practices are that you would divulge that relationship, and it's incumbent upon your boss then to document it. Some organizations even have something called a love contract, and that's in which someone has to formally acknowledge that they're in a relationship with a coworker and that they are going to uphold and not violate the organization's policies on sexual harassment in the workplace. Because like I said, what can happen is that something that starts as a consensual relationship, when things go sour, people can allege sexual harassment, and organizations are very sensitive to that matter.
In other words, it's complicated for employees, it's complicated for employers.
The relationship status,
it's really complicated. It's complicated, really. But it happens, it's common. And, you know, whether you're on TV, that doesn't matter. It happens at every job. So, wow, really interesting discussion.
Yep. All right, Angela Hall, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
By the way, not my baby.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear. Not mine.
This is not, nope, not it.
Not mine.
Well,